First of all, welcome and thank you so much for being here at our Sisters in Crime Heart of Texas chapter meeting for June. We meet the second Sunday of every month, unless there's a holiday that kind of messes us up. We try to be kind about people who like to celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever. So here we go. First of all, I'm going to send this over to our phenomenal Maureen, who is at West Bank Library and does all the tech stuff for us. And we need to get some stuff on the record, I believe, Maureen.
Yes. So I just want to make sure it's okay if we record the session and we will post it onto the library's YouTube page later, if it's okay with our speaker.
Yes, it is. Yes.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Well, I am so looking forward to hearing Kay's talk today. So I'm just going to jump in and give you her bio. And maybe at the end, we'll cover a few things about future meetings and all. Today, Kay is going to be speaking about writing the good, the bad, the ugly, and the funny. Yay. The stories Kay George can tell. As a best-selling author across the spectrum of mystery genres, both traditional and indie, a Silver Falchion winner, and an Agatha Christie and Derringer finalist, and a reviewer for Suspense Magazine, and an editor of the What's Your Process column in Mysterical E-Magazine, she's been there, done that, and got the t-shirt. Please join us for a lively and entertaining walk through her storied career. Kay is a national selling, multiple award-winning author of prehistory, traditional, and cozy mysteries. Her latest is the Vintage Sweet series from Lyrical Press, as well as over 50 short stories. She's a member of Sisters in Crime, Smoking Guns chapter of Knoxville, Guppies chapter, Author Guild of Tennessee, Knoxville Writers Group, and Austin Mystery Writers. She lives and works in Knoxville, Tennessee, and everyone, please join me in welcoming Kay George to our meeting.
I would like to do a correction on the Sylvia Falchion, the Silver Falchion. I did not win that. This group won that. It was given to
the Austin Mystery Writers.
It was given to the anthology that we did. Yeah.
Well said.
I
did not participate in the anthology, but I think Kathy Waller, you did. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And was there anyone else here today that, Noreen, did you?
I don't see any others here.
Okay. All right. Well done, y'all. Well done. It's a really fun book. So enjoy, and Kay, take it away.
Okay. I was asked to give some of my experiences. Maybe it will help you with your ups and downs. We've all had a lot of ups and downs as writers, and especially in these last over the last year, right? That's been like a lot of downs. I've been at this long enough that I've had good days, bad days, wonderful days, horrible days, a lot of all of them. I was lucky last year because I kept writing for all of 2002, and I know writers who couldn't write during 2002. And I understand being paralyzed and not being able to write, but I did not have that last year. And I felt really lucky because I had a contract with Lyrical Press and I had deadlines. They wanted a book every 6 months, but I don't do a book every 6 months. So I actually wrote them ahead of time. I was writing the last couple books during last year. I had such a long, rocky road to publication. When I started my blog, I was still on the road. I wasn't there, and I didn't know if I'd ever get there, if it would be all journey and no destination. So I called my blog Travels with Kay because I thought, well, we can just like travel, and if we get there, okay. My journey, the serious part of it, started in 2004 in Dallas when my husband had a really weird midlife crisis. Actually, he had the crisis a few years before that. He was laid off from Nortel. We were living in Dallas, and he came home one day and said, he told me he had enrolled in Perkins Seminary at SMU. And I said, you what? I didn't know this was a thing that was on the horizon or in the picture or anything. The way he put it, the way it's put usually is that they got a call. My husband got a call. And the way the spouses put it is, we didn't get a call. Somebody forgot to call us. So I kept working. I was in therapy for several months, deciding whether to leave or not, and whether I wanted to do this. Because being a minister's wife is a thing, you know, and it's not something I signed up for. So I kept working to put him and two of our kids at the same time through college. You can tell how I feel about that. So he graduated and he got his first church as a beginning minister in his 50s. He's still treated as a beginner in beautiful downtown Holiday, Texas. We quit working and lived on his salary, and I found out where the phrase came from the phrase poor as a church mouse. We were poor as church mice living on his salary. So I'll start out with a bad. I started my first serious novel. Took me about 4 years, lots of classes, critiques, and a lot of rewrites. And then I started to submit it. And I wrote a sequel thinking, well, both of them will be published pretty soon. And then I'll write a third while I'm querying the second or whatever. And when I got to 100 rejections, I took a detour. Let me mention, oh, now I can't remember the name of it, that the query site that I use. Anyway, I'll get that later. But what's good is I dropped that project and it gave me a chance to do something I'd been pondering for a while. This was in 2008, and the scientists were just beginning to unravel the Neanderthal genome. They sequenced the mitochondrial genome in a 38,000-year-old bone for the first time in 2008. I've always been interested in old things. I collect fossils and rocks. In fact, on one of our moves, one of the movers asked me, what's in this box, rocks? And I said, yes, those are my rocks. I have lots of rocks. I know where I got almost all of them, and they're on windowsills and things, and I like rocks. I latched onto the Neanderthal stuff, I think, because I had taken a geology course in college, which got me interested in old things. The only reason I took the geology course is it was the easiest science course, and I had to take a science course to graduate. But it stuck, and I got so that I loved looking at an exposed cliff with layers of rock, and it's like you could see your way down through history. You could see a bed of limestone, that's where there was a sea, and all the little sea creatures are dead there. You could see some shale, or you know, maybe some where there was a magma flow, and it's just interesting to me to see back through the ages. So I started a Neanderthal mystery project. I knew it was going to be a blockbuster. I knew it was going to be a YA crossover, just like J.K. Rowling, right? So I labored over my research. It was breaking out. It's still breaking out almost every week. They find out new things about Neanderthals. I finished the book in about a year. I got a professional critique. I thought that I really had something, and I was going to do 2 more books, and I would be at least, and I'd be really famous for this. And here comes the ugly. You know what? If you do something that nobody's ever done before, even though they want something new, they don't know what to do with it. I had agents that I queried that loved my submission. I was submitting the whole novel. One agent said she loved it. It was better than Jane Austen, but she didn't know what to do with it. She didn't have the context to sell it. And I wanted to say, well, sell it to Scholastic. That's who published J.K. Rowling, but they didn't do that. So that kind of broke my heart. I had 100 rejections on that. And here comes the funny. I was really angry. I had nothing but rejection so far. And I was going to just write the stupidest book I could. I was going to show them. My heroine was too stupid to live. She went in the dark places alone. She did everything wrong. She didn't know how to investigate crime. She broke all the rules, and she solved the crimes anyway. And she was going to be my inept detective. And the initials ID stuck. I dropped the inept detective for some reason, but I called her Imogene Duckworthy. And not that the name Imogene is funny, but I remember Imogene Coca from when I was a child, and she's one of the funniest people that ever lived. So I named her Imogene, and I just thought Duckworthy. I think Duckworth is a funny name, but there are people named Duckworth, so I put a Y on it, and I don't think people are named Duckworthy. So I gave her a ridiculous name, put her in a single wide with her obese, retired librarian, pedantic mother who always uses the biggest, most inappropriate word for everything. I gave her a toddler daughter who was the product of a meeting at a truck stop, but Emmy didn't catch the name of the guy, so she doesn't know who the father is. I put him in a version of Holiday, which we had moved out of by that time. Holiday is very much a dying town. It was a town that supplied, they were a supply center for people drilling oil wells, and people are less and less drilling oil wells. So there's not much business in that town. When we lived there, there was one blinking light, not even a stoplight, a blinking light. You could just whiz through that town. And it's right outside of Wichita Falls, which is a really ridiculous town. I'm sorry if you're from Wichita Falls, but that town is named after a waterfall that used to be there. It wasn't even really a waterfall. When the settlers came, the European settlers, there was an impressive rapids, and they named the town Wichita Falls. It was on the Wichita River. That had already been named apparently, but a big storm came and washed it away, and then it was all flat. There wasn't any falls anymore, and it was named Wichita Falls, and there wasn't a waterfall. So the wise city fathers built a waterfall on the steep bank. They put a pump at the top, and they pump the water up, and they send it down over not even real rocks, fake rocks. The waterfall goes over fake rocks. And when the level on the water gets too low and the water gets too silty, they have to turn the waterfall off. It's the only waterfall I know of that has an on-off switch. But anyway, I happened to be on the grand jury when we lived there for 6 months, and I learned a lot about that town, a lot about that area. Now here's the good. By that time we had moved to Taylor, which you probably know of. And I met up with Kathy Waller and some others, and I joined your chapter. And I don't think I've ever enjoyed a writing group as much as I enjoyed this one. It was just a really, really great group. Kind of a strange thing is the only writers in Wichita Falls were romance writers, and they're very nice people. And I met with them and had lunch with them. And one woman gave me some of her books, and I started reading the first book. And on the first or second page, the couple had sex in the elevator going up into the office building. And then the second page, they had sex on the desk. And on the third page, they had sex in the bathroom. And I thought, these are not my people. they need to be killing people, not having sex all over the place. So I was so glad to get to a place with mystery writers. I queried the Emmy stuff for a couple of years, and I wrote one more of those. And I was absolutely shocked when my stupid, ridiculous book got accepted by a publisher. I named it Choke. Even the title is ridiculous because the way the murder is committed. The guy is, he's the owner of a restaurant, and he's killed by a half-frozen tube of smoked sausage stuffed down his throat. And let me tell you, I did a lot of research for this. I bought a lot of sausage and froze it, and I had to figure out, you couldn't do it frozen because that wouldn't choke anybody, and you couldn't do it unfrozen because that was just too mushy. It had to be half frozen. And so I studied how long it had to be thawed before it would be exactly the right consistency to do it. That novel was nominated for an Agatha for the best first novel that year, and all I could think of was, what's wrong with people? So anyway, I soon found out what's wrong with people. Here's the ugly. What's wrong was my first publisher. I had no opportunity to review the cover copy that they put on the book. And I had renamed Holiday to Salt Lick. I wanted to protect Holiday from my dumb book because I love the people who live there. but the publisher put that the town was named Salt Lake. That's not even funny. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Mine was at least kind of cute. But anyway, I told the publisher, I'll call her Cruella de Evil, about it and request that she change it. And she said she would change it after I'd sold 500 copies. This was a POD. She could have changed it in a minute. And she said I had to sell 500 copies. So I was mad. I was on a list, I think it was Dorothy L. And people talked about their books. And I thought, I have a book. I could talk about my book and I'm going to make lemonade out of this. So I posted that there was a blatant typo on the cover. And this was a first edition and people needed to get this quick before they fixed it and came out with a second edition. Well, I had no idea that Cruella was lurking on that list. And she was pissed that I had said she made a mistake. Well, she did make a mistake. She made a typo. And from then on, every email she sent gave me a stomachache because she was actually abusive and just really mean. She told me to bite my tongue. Kathy remembers that. And I said, no, I'm going to bite her. So the other ugly thing is that book got the Agatha nomination, and she was the very firm opinion that conferences are useless and awards are useless. And she would not put that anywhere on the site or on the book. So on the anniversary of the day of my publication, the first year, according to my contract, I broke it and I was ready to go with a self-published version that had Agatha nominee on the cover and a new cover and corrected some of her editing. She had the idea that I had a lot of rapid fire dialogue in the book where people interrupt each other and things get confused. And she thought that M dashes were harsh to the eye of the reader, like they were going to stab them in the eye or something. And so she put ellipses on all my dialogue. So one person would say something and trail off, and another person would say something and trail off. So I changed all those and put it back like it should be. So, okay, that's that. Then the good comes. On the strength of that, I think I was able to get a small publisher for the Neanderthal stuff. And Untreed Reads was very happy to put out 2 books. And at about the same time, I landed another small press for that very first series, my Cressa Caraway, and they published 2 books. So all that trench work was finally paying off. Very quickly, I had a proposal accepted by an agency that time had a good in with a cozy publisher, Berkeley Prime Crime. And I will mention that I had submitted a lot of proposals to that agency over the years because I knew that's where I wanted to be. I had some friends there. A proposal is 3 chapters, a detailed synopsis giving the whole plot so they can tell you know how to plot, and a sketch of 2 more books. And I had written quite a few of those, and it's really like a little death when they don't accept the proposal, because I had created characters and a storyline and I had breathed life into them. And then when they weren't accepted, it's like they died and they're dead in a folder. But they did get me a contract with Berkeley, which is a very good. That was an imprint of Penguin. So I had a Penguin book and they published 3 of those. And now I had made it. There was no place to go but up. In fact, a very good thing happened. Walmart, who decides what they want to do and what they don't want to do, the publisher offered all their books to them, but Walmart took that first Fat Cat book, which I wrote as Janet Cantrell because it's a work for hire, but that's a whole nother story. They put the book in the store on the shelf at Walmart, and I sold 24,000 copies of that book. I have never sold even half that amount of anything else, and they didn't pick up the 2nd and 3rd books. But then comes the ugly, of course. I had not made it. It all crashed. Random House bought Penguin. They say they merged, but they fired all the seasoned editors. They shut down Berkeley Prime Crime, shut down the imprint, fired almost all the authors, all the cozy authors. And I don't have very good thoughts about them either. I call them Random Penguin, although they don't like to call themselves that. But some good came finally. It was 4 years before I had another novel published, more proposals, more rejections. But my agent finally landed me a contract with Lyrical Press, which is an imprint of Kensington, and that's my vintage sweets books. And I put out 3 cozies for them. I set them in Fredericksburg, which I had been to a few times and loved the place. I was really startled when my New Jersey agent, I proposed setting the book in Fredericksburg, because you have to go through your agent to get to the to get to the publisher. She'd been to Fredericksburg and she liked it, so that was okay with her. And so then comes a bad. I hit the worst patch of my life after we moved to Knoxville in 2013, because my husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's about 6 months after we moved, although I knew before that he had it. And a year later, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. I had a lot of writing to do. And when the home health aides were here, I shut my door and I did my writing, and that my writing just saved me during those 4 years. He passed away in 2017. And a few months before he died, and for a few months after that, I really couldn't write at all. But I did keep writing short stories, and I got a few of those accepted. Let me go back to the beginning. Those 10 years when I was writing novels before I got the first one accepted, I started submitting short stories, and I had written those all my life. I wrote literary short stories in high school and college and submitted them to the New Yorker and what was then the Atlantic Monthly. Now it's just the Atlantic. And I got piles and piles of rejection slips, and I just kept sending them in. I took a composition course from a professor named E. Hungerford, who his claim to fame is he's the man who discovered Saul Bellow. I don't know if anybody remembers who Saul Bellow is, but he was a very famous Chicago writer at the time. And I was at school at Northwestern in Chicago, north of Chicago. But he said he thought I would be a good writer in 20 years. I guess he meant I didn't have enough water in my well, enough experience to be a good writer. And it was more than 20 years, but anyway, I started getting short stories published eventually, and that kept me going. That kept me encouraged, although there's no money in short stories. I got $50 for one once, and that's about it. Right now, I am not under contract anywhere, and this is the first time in a long time. I got another agent after I left Bookends, and she tried to sell a series that I wrote. I was calling it the Texas Festival series. It was going to be something that picked up where Emmy left off, kind of humorous. I wanted her to go around to all the festivals. I set the first one at the Taylor Rattlesnake Roundup, which I had attended a couple times. And she was going to have a cookie truck where she made cookies, and she made Spritz cookies that were coiled up like a rattlesnake. And I was going to have one at, I forget what rodeo I was going to set it at, but somebody was going to get gored by a bull. And I was going to do the Harryman Festival, of course, in Round Rock, and the Chili Festival, and the sand castle building, the sand sculpture thing. But that agent queried that thing to almost every publisher in the world. And she didn't make it clear. I think she handles a lot of cozies, and I don't think she made it clear that it was not a cozy. No, it was a book about rattlesnakes, and people roundly rejected it. And so that one's kind of dead. I decided I'm kind of adrift, and I decided to finish up my Neanderthal series and my Cressa Caraway series. They only have 2 books and they need another one. So I started writing another Neanderthal, and I'm about 2/3 to 3/4 done with that, I guess. Kathy Waller wants another imaging book, but I think she's the only person that wants one. I do have a start on that. I have started one of those. Right now, I have another writer who started a book the same time I started this one, the Neanderthal book. She writes cozies, but we decided to report to each other. Actually, it was her proposal. She asked me if I would report every day. So every evening, we both write about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So about 5 or 6, we report what we've done for the day. And it really gives me an impetus to write, knowing that I have to tell Marilyn that I either wrote or did not write that day. and how much I wrote. And she's way ahead of me, but that's okay because we're just kind of going at our own pace. And I highly recommend, I've been in other goal setting groups, and I'm actually in a couple online, but there's about 30 people in them. They don't notice if I'm not there. I highly recommend exchanging reporting with one person. I'm in Ramona DeFelice's sprint group. Those people all write early in the morning, and so I come in later in the day and tell them what I did. Sometimes I don't. Meanwhile, I did write a psychological suspense, I think, unless it's a psychological thriller, something. I love to read those. And I decided I was just a little bit over cozies. I'd written 2 cozy series. And honestly, that's a terrific audience. Those people buy. If you've got a cat on the cover, you'll sell it. And it's a good market. But I just wanted to do something else. So I wrote a psychological thriller, and I happened to be talking to Ellen Byron at Malice. And I said, I wish I could find an agent that would rep all kinds of things. I'd like to write a psychological book, a psychological suspense. And she said, my agent has been after me to write one. And darn if she didn't introduce me to her agent right there at Malice. And he said he would read it. So I wrote it. I took about a year to write it. And he said, I gave it to him in January. He said he would get back to me by the end of April. No, the end of March. So the middle of April, I emailed him and he said he would get back to me by the end of April. So it's about the middle of May and I'll email him again. She does say he's notoriously bad at feedback, but if he would take that book, that would be really great. That's a funny, strange thing, I think. He's still looking at it. If that deal doesn't come through, I do have a publisher for the Neanderthal. My Cressa Caraway book has fallen upon hard times. That publisher went under, which is another one of those things that happens to writers. And it's orphaned, and I can't get anybody to pick that back up. I'll probably, if I want to continue with that or keep it for sale, I'll have to self-publish that like I did the Imogene Duckworthy books, I guess. So ahead after this is The Wild Blue Yonder. I have a bulging pile. I have a file full of ideas, and I couldn't possibly live long enough to write all of them. So I'll do something, but I don't know what yet. And I guess what I've learned is there's no destination. There's just stops along the way. You get to one destination. All my life, I just wanted to publish a book, and I was able to publish 13, but that's not enough for me, you know? I got to keep publishing books. You just have to keep doing that. I might do a memoir someday. I've tried that several times, but I don't know how to do that. I might have to take a course or something. What I'm the happiest about is that I'm a mystery writer. I just think mystery writers are some of the best people in the world. My theory is, and a lot of people have this theory, I think, we get all of our aggressions out on the page or the computer screen, whatever we're doing. We can do whatever we want. We can like torture people, kill people. We can make bad people into the murderer. We can make, people that have wronged us in life can either be the killer or the victim, whatever we want. And so it's all out, and we can just be nice people because we've taken care of all the bad stuff with our writing. I really think that's how mystery writers operate.
Well, just so I can jump in here for a minute, Kay. Everyone, she is wanting to hear your questions and just break in. All you have to do is just unmute yourself and break in whenever you have a question or a comment. I know I have a question,
Okay.
so I'll start it off. It seems to me, okay, you have indie published, but you also keep querying and looking for publishers. So what's your
And
balance?
agents.
Agents, I should say that, agents. So what's the pros of one and the cons of it, and the pros of the other and the cons of it? Kind of, what's your thought process as you go through that?
Having an agent is the easiest. having an agent that sells to a good publisher is the best. If they can get your books onto the bookshelves at Barnes and Noble, that's the ideal. If they're Kensington or Penguin or one of the imprints, they pretty much take care of everything. All you need to do is write the book, and they do everything. Even Lyrical Press, the Kensington imprint, they give me lots of free ebooks, free audiobooks. And if I say I want to send some books to some reviewers, they'll send them for me. Doesn't cost me anything. They'll mail out the paperbacks. They take care of everything. There's not a lot of control. I wasn't extremely happy.
A lot of
with-
control on your part.
Yeah, I wasn't extremely happy with my covers for the vintage suites. You may notice on the first cover, oh, I should have had my books here. Anyway, there's a picture of the shop where my character makes her vintage suites. And in the background are a bunch of skyscrapers. And I said, this is Fredericksburg. But the skyscrapers stayed there. The cover of the second book had the inside of the shop with a bunch of baked goods. They were pies and cookies. And I said, no, that's not what she's selling. And I got really upset about that. And I actually had to threaten to break the contract. I says, I'm not gonna have you publish it this way. This is not a book in a bakery. That's not what it is. And at the last minute, they did change it. They put some candy in the shop. So, but I'll tell you, they know what they're doing with those covers, even if they haven't read the book, because people love those covers and they pick up the book because of those covers, and it sells the book. So, but you know, when it's self-publishing, that's the hardest. I don't even know what I'll do if I have to self-publish again. I did it with CreateSpace last time, and that's gone. I have to learn a new technology to self-publish some more books. And it's hard, you know, you have to do everything. You can pay people, but I don't have the wherewithal to do that. I do all the formatting and everything. And I pay people for covers, and I pay for some editing and usually, now my Neanderthal book that I had edited, I got an expensive editor to do that, and I gave her the first 50 pages. And I got enough out of the feedback that she gave me to polish that book up with what she told me to do. So there's control, not control, and then there's sales and not sales. Self-publishing a book, you just don't sell very many of them. You have to really, really work to sell them. And that's not the kind of work I like to do. Some people like to do that. I'm not crazy about it. Anybody else?
Yeah, Anna's one of the ones that likes to do it.
Yeah. And she does it well, though. She does it really well.
Yeah, I don't think it's that hard. It's another thing to learn. I actually think it's really good for the aging brain to acquire these additional skills for, marketing or whatever. I don't think it's that hard. I'm not interested in paperback sales. It sounds like we look at two different kinds of things in terms of selling books. I couldn't care less about paperback sales or books in bookstores. And I think I sell a pretty fair number of books. And I consider myself to be in the middle in terms of self-publishing success. And so you can have all the success you want. You can't do it if you jump from genre to genre, subgenre to genre like you do. You kind of have to be a little more focused in terms of what you want to publish.
That's probably why Kate
pick up an audience, you build an audience is how you do it. So
that's probably how Kay is able to, because of her publishers picking up those books, then she has an into those different markets because she's got different publishers for different types of stories. Okay,
I do have prehistory fans who are eagerly awaiting my next book and are so glad I'm writing it. Those are not my cozy fans; those are my prehistory fans, and yeah, I have fans for each type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use a lot of social media?
Oh, wait, what was the question?
Sorry, do you use a lot of social media to be in touch with your fans?
That's Melissa. Melissa's asking that.
Okay. I do. And honestly, the cozy fans are the easiest ones to get in touch with on social media. And maybe the others are there and I haven't found it, but there are a ton of Facebook groups for avid cozy readers, and you get a discussion going and they all chime in and you can give books away and they all read them. And I'm astounded at the people who say they've read my books when I'm on there, because I just figure only people I know have read my books, but that's apparently not true. And it's really nice to find that out. But there are a lot of cozy groups online on Facebook. And I guess Twitter is something that I don't do much of. I'm just not comfortable on Twitter. I'm comfortable on Facebook, even with all its defects. There are mystery thriller groups also that are fairly active. And if I ever get a thriller, I'll get in with them and try to push over there. But you have to find where the people are. You really do. You have to find where the audiences are. And then there's short stories. That's another audience too.
Oh, talk about that.
What do you want me to talk about?
Well, so you said that you had participated in the Austin Mystery Writers Anthology. So is
Yes.
that where your short stories end up, or how do you get those out and about?
Nowadays, most of them are in anthologies, and I've been writing short stories for a long, long time. I was getting those published. The first one I published under my own name, which is Judy Egner. And it was right when my husband was becoming the Methodist minister. And I started to think maybe Methodist ministers shouldn't be so interested in dead bodies and weapons. And so I acquired a pen name. My daughter came up with it. It's my middle name and my husband's middle name, K. George. And I thought that would put me by Elizabeth George on the shelf, right? Not that I'm on the shelf much, but so I started to get short stories published and get in with the short story community. And I'm very gratified that I've actually been invited to a couple anthologies recently, which is a huge honor for me. I got inspired to put out my own anthology when in 2017, the total eclipse happened in this country. And it happened in my front yard. Actually, I went to my son's front yard because he has a real nice front yard for it. But I just got inspired by that, and I did it really quickly. I was at Malice that year. The eclipse was in September, right? September. I think it was September 17th or something. I don't remember the date, but anyway, I'm surprised I forgot that. At Malice that year, I told John Betancourt at Wildside Press, because I had some things published with them, some short story things. And I told him about my idea, and he at the conference took out his laptop and designed the cover. He says he was really excited about it, and he accepted to publish it before I even had the stories, which I thought was a vote of confidence in me, because I still had to get stories from people and get them edited and everything. They did a round of editing too. And I thought, well, maybe I'll have 3 stories if nobody responds. I actually got more stories than I could publish, and it kind of broke my heart. I had to turn down some good stories because I didn't have room for all of them. I had to pick which stories to put in there. And that's really hard. I don't know if I'll ever do another anthology because of that. But it turned out pretty successful. It was called Day of the Dark, Stories of Eclipse or something like that. And every story had to have an eclipse in it. And some of them were lunar eclipses, actually. And some of them were in other countries, and some of them were across our country. And it was really fun to put together. I love writing short stories. I think there's 2 kinds of writers. I think there are native born short story writers and native born novel writers. And I am a short story writer. The only reason I write novels is because I want to sell things, and short stories you mostly have to give away.
Okay, when you said that you did the Eclipse thing, does that mean that you were the editor and publisher of it?
No, excuse me, Wildside Press published it.
Oh, okay. I've heard of Wildside. Wildside does anthologies, right?
Yes, and I had had stories and anthologies with them. And like I say, John Betancourt is the main editor there. And he's the one that designed the cover and got excited about it and accepted it as soon as I mentioned it to him. And he got it out in time for the eclipse. And that was like only a few months. That was a really short turnaround. But I said I want it out in time for the eclipse. And he did it. And it was really a good experience. All in all.
Okay, I feel like I'm hogging the conversation, guys. Kathy, can you tell us some fun stories about Kay George behind her back?
Okay, I'll turn around.
We need you to.
I have one. I don't know if it's a story exactly, but I remember there was some conference you were talking about going to. Didn't they have a couple of mystery conferences here in Austin?
Yeah,
And,
they had that one in Plano.
oh, was it in Plano?
Oh, no, that
You were
Plano.
talking about how you bought a drink for every agent you could identify when you were so boozing as hard as you could. You said, "I'm just bringing them drinks." And I just remember
Texas,
that.
maybe it was the
That-
Texas Writers Association.
Yeah, it may have been that
Probably,
one, you know,
yeah.
yeah. And I just remember, wow, well, there's a strategy. We're trying
Hey,
to-
do you think that's a good strategy, Kay? Did it pay off?
Conferences are all about the bar, in case
yeah.
nobody's twigged to that. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
But did any of your drinks that you bought for agents pay off? Did
Yeah,
you? No.
yeah.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. So I don't know. Wildside may have been a nice guy a while back, but he has been an absolute jerk to Guppy's anthologies for the past two ones, which
Who
I
is
have.
this?
John Betancourt at Wildside.
Wildside?
Yeah. I think he may be getting out of it. I don't know. He has been
Oh.
an absolute jerk for this last one, and they were not particularly communicative or friendly for our last Guppy. I've been coordinator for the last two Guppy and short story anthologies.
Bless you.
And,
That's a hard job.
It
Okay.
wasn't that hard for the first one, but last time our call for submissions came out right around the time that RWA was imploding, remember? And so
Yeah.
there was this massive exodus from RWA, and I think a lot of them came to Guppies and they went, "Hey, short story," and they jumped in. And I don't know. We had 80 plus submissions for that. It was
Wow.
horrible. I was swamped. And
Yeah.
the poor judges had to read. I don't read them, right? But the judges had to read 80 things. And Wildside, I mean, he's just been putting this off and putting this off. The covers, they don't do any branding. I finally figured out that one of the reasons they like doing chapter anthologies is because they make their money back selling author copies. And so basically that's their deal. If there's 23
Probably
authors,
true. Yeah.
yeah. And I consider that a vanity press, and I'm really annoyed at them. And they don't do anything. I don't know. It's
Okay,
like
okay, Anna, we're good.
sorry,
We're
sorry,
good.
Anyway, just
Kathy, well, it sounded like Kathy, you were going to tell a story or two.
I just want to make sure that everyone understands that Wildside is not someone to query at this time. Whatever
Okay.
that may have been with the Eclipse one has changed.
Well, maybe if you had a different project. They
I don't-
do other things too.
they don't-
Kathy,
I'll tell you though,
Bam.
I have a story in that first Guppy anthology, and I think I have one in another one too.
yeah,
but-
you did.
Those are still selling. Those are not
Barely.
author copies. Those are still, I still get royalties for those. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but they still pop up. People are still buying those.
I don't know how
So
you
you
get
make-
royalties.
You may be surprised. They may keep going.
But how do you get royalties? You mean Guppies get royalties? You don't personally get any royalties from those anthologies.
I personally get, he may have restructured it since then, but those first few, we all got a cut.
Huh?
Does he give a payment now instead?
No, you get a free copy. If you buy author copies.
Oh,
Yeah, you get pretty much nothing.
okay.
You have to buy the author copies in order to get your free copy.
I will say that not all anthologies are along those lines. I don't want to
Yeah.
have people
Yeah.
stopping wanting to submit to them because Noreen's had a much
Oh,
better
no.
experience and whatever. Kathy
No, it's
Walter,
not.
tell us a different story about Kay George. You're on, girl.
Well, for one thing, she was really the backbone of that first Austin Mystery Writers anthology. She suggested it after several of us had been on email one night together, and we got to kind of playing with words, and she said we ought to do an anthology with the theme of wheels, murder on wheels. And so that's how it came about. And she did all the business and all the, especially the treasurer's business, which is not nice to do. I mean, it would be hard, at least for those of us who can't count and do arithmetic. And when she escaped from Austin, we named her.
I did not escape. You won't let me out of the group. She said I'm emeritus and I have to belong to the group forever. I did not,
Actually,
I tried, but
we gave her a certificate naming her the Grand Poobah Emerita
yes, emeritus.
of Austin Mystery Writers. And so that was my first short story or anything publication, and it's all due to Kay. Now, this next is not biased because of that. Choke is one of the funniest books I have ever read. During the letter opener scene, when it flew out of the car, I laughed so long and loudly that my husband, I think, was worried because I didn't see it coming. And there is also a disguise. Now, I believe it's called Boobs and Belly.
Big
And-
boobs and belly, or big boobs and belly, I think is what it's called. I actually found that
I
online.
know she
That's a thing.
tried on several. And anyway, and the poor Emmy Duckworthy gets stuck in a locker because the fat costume is too big. She got him, couldn't get out.
It's a kind of a molded plastic thing, and you put your clothes over it, and it gives you a different body shape for disguise.
And there is also a vicious hen named Larry Bird, and a lot of other stuff. And I really, it's the funniest thing. It's Lucille Ball and Inspector Clouseau rolled into one. So
They thought Larry Bird was a rooster, but he wasn't. So, but he answered to Larry Bird, so they called him that.
it's not
Hey,
nice.
what are some advice that you can, you've done so many different things, short stories, novels, all kinds of novels. What's some advice that you would give to folks who are in the biz about how we should go forward and keep putting the stuff on the page?
That's the most important thing, is keep putting the stuff on the page, keep writing. You can't stop writing. You just always have to have a project going, at least one project. Let me interject something about, she talked about the money handling for an anthology. I really think the best way to do an anthology is to donate the money to charity. And that kind of gives you good PR, and you don't have to do any bookkeeping. You just take all the money and you give it to the charity. We gave the Meals on Wheels. We actually, the money was involved with paying for the edit. We did pay a professional editor for those. And we give all our money to Austin Meals on Wheels, which they don't call it Meals on Wheels anymore, but anyway, that's who we give it to. And then my Day of the Dark, my Eclipse book, most of the money from that, most of the authors agreed for me to give it to Earth and Sky, which is an organization I follow online. They give, they send out emails, and they give information about things happening on Earth and in the sky, and like ecology stuff and celestial stuff. But as far as writing, I think it's good. I mean, we write alone, right? We can't like be, well, some people can be in a room full of people, like in a cafe or something. I have to write alone with no music and no nothing, with the door closed. I have to be all by myself. But I think you need to counteract that by getting together with writers. And Sisters in Crime chapters are good. Conferences are good. You need to just be with your own kind every once in a while. What else can I say?
Well,
If-
I heard you talking about Malice Domestic. What are some of the ones that you feel you've gotten the most out of, or it's been the best for you to go to for you?
Probably Malice is my favorite, only because I've been so many times. I've been going to that for, I don't even know, over 15 years, I'm sure. And it's like old home week when I'm there. I know a lot of people there. A lot of people I know go there. I'm very comfortable there. The first time I was terrified, of course, because I'm not one to just walk up to somebody and say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I just published a book." And so, you know, that's.
No, but you're more than welcome at the bar to go up to total strangers and hand them a glass of a martini or something, right?
Well, or a business card. I'm a big proponent of business cards. In fact, I was at the senior center the other day, and I noticed they had a rack of books, Linda Fairstein and Baldacci and something. And I said, "Is that like a little library? Are you lending books out?" And they said, "Yes, you take it whenever you want. You bring it back whenever you want. It's not formal." And I said, "Well, would you like me to bring some of my books? I've published some books." And they said, "Oh, you're a writer?" And I gave away 2 business cards. And the last time I had, they wanted to do a thing on they wanted to do an ultrasound on my thyroid, which turned out to be okay. But I mentioned to the tech that I was a writer, and I gave away 3 business cards at that doctor's office. And you never know who's gonna be a mystery fan. And if they're not a mystery fan, sometimes, you know, they're in the wrong generation, but their mother is a mystery fan. So you can give them a card to take to their
Melissa?
mother.
Do you mind if I ask, what do you put on your card? Do you put things that you've published already, or?
No, I put my name, and I put my phone number and my email address and my webpage. That's what I put, because I figure they can get everything they need with that. I try to keep my webpage up to date.
Excellent. Can I ask one more question while I have you?
Yes.
Do you have any tips for, obviously you've gone through a lot of ups and downs and dealt with lots of agents and publishers and self-publishing. How do you keep going when you get to that point where you're getting a lot of rejections?
I read something a while ago, and well, the Guppies used to have a thing where we had a month, or was it several months, where we had a contest for how many rejections we could collect. And the one who got the most rejections was the rejection queen. And you held that title. And we had one guy, Jim Jackson, who got the title, and he was very good about it. He said he was wearing a boa and a crown, and he was going to get some high heels. And it just, making it into a competition like that, made it something that you know, it's something that I just kept doing. And another theory that I read was the magic number theory. It's that you query until you get accepted somewhere, and that is your magic number. You might send 15 queries, and your 16th one would be your magic number. You might send 120, and 121 is your magic number. Mine was 468. After 468 rejections, I got an acceptance for that first book. And that is not uncommon. It helps to know that that is not uncommon. It takes like 10 years of writing and learning how to write and learning what to do with your writing after you've written it, you know, where to put it. And I remember it's Query Tracker, querytracker.net. is where I got a lot of information, publishers and agents. In fact, I like it so much, I don't even use it anymore, but I keep giving them like $25 a year or something to keep them in business, because they collect, and it's like a Wikipedia thing. They collect what people put in there, you know, what the people who belong there. They're able to put the average response time for an agent, the percentage of rejections and acceptances, and what kind of thing they're looking for publishers and agents.
Oh.
It's a valuable resource.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Helen, I noticed that you're unmuted. Did you have a Helen Fanick? I noticed that you were unmuted. Do you have a question, my dear?
No, I've just, oh, I was going to ask her when she talked about buying drinks for the agents. Is that, can you deduct that?
Yeah, you deduct everything you spend at a
I would.
conference. Yeah, all your drinks, all your meals, your hotel, everything, your travel.
Yeah, I was still muted and I tried to ask the question and then, anyway.
Yeah, that's another thing is taxes. Even before you're published, you can deduct all your expenses off your income, even if you don't have an income. I remember the first year I made like $149 and I thought, oh shoot, now I don't have a tax deduction anymore. But the IRS is very lenient with authors. Some people say there's a 3-year hobby rule, but that does not apply to authors. You can go for 10 or 12 years taking deductions and not getting published if you're able to show that you're trying to get published. I used to be a programmer and we used to keep track of our time in, I think it was 12.5-minute increments. I use 15-minute increments because that's easier for me. But I still do that. I just keep track of my time. I keep track of how much time I'm spending writing, how much time I'm spending networking, how much time I'm spending marketing. And I have it on a spreadsheet so that if the IRS ever wants to know what I'm doing, I can show them what I'm doing, that I'm actually working. And you have to keep track of all your submissions so they know you're submitting and trying to get published. All the emails you send out to agents and editors. And writers usually don't get audited because there's not enough money there. We are poor people, except for, you know, the top 5 or whatever they are. But you just for peace of mind, you need to do that. You can take deductions for, if you buy a new computer, that's a deduction. You know, if you buy a new printer, all your printer paper, your toner, everything you use, mileage, if you drive to a meeting, you need to keep track of all those things and you can deduct all those. And then because there is so little money in writing, at least there's some benefit financially. And a lot of people had a problem in 2020 because we didn't go anywhere. We didn't have enough deductions. So they're trying to scramble. Oh, what am I going to do? I got to buy something. I got to have a deduction.
Absolutely true. So you're going, a Malice Domestic this year is online, right?
It is. Oh, you were asking me about conferences and I didn't finish. Malice is my mainstay. I usually go to Malice every year. I am
And
not.
where is that? Is it always in the same place?
Well, they've changed it a couple times. Now it's in Bethesda, Maryland, and I'm not crazy about the hotel they have. It used to be in Crystal City, in DC, and I thought that was a much better place, but they like the tax situation in Maryland better. They think they get a better deal there. I like to go to Left Coast Crime. That's a conference that moves around to different places. I've been to it in Seattle and Santa Fe and somewhere else. And there's a lot of little conferences. There's one, I think the one put on by the library in Omaha folded up and isn't there anymore. What was that one called? Something about, it wasn't Mayhem in the Midlands because that's something else. But I like to go to one big one and one small one at least every year. And if I can afford it, a couple of the smaller ones. I went to BoucherCon for the first time in Dallas. Was that 2 years ago?
Last,
The BoucherCon in Dallas. And
Yeah.
that was not a great experience. That is, a lot of people love VoucherCon, but that's too big. It's just too big. I didn't know where the dinners were. I didn't know. It was just very confusing. It was hard to navigate and hard to meet people there, and it was.
That VoucherCon had a lot of issues from what I understand. It's the only conference I've ever been to. And so I had nothing to judge it against, but listening to people talk about, wait, where's this? Wait, where's that? And watching them try to put up signs after it had already started,
Yeah,
rearrange things after it had already started. Nobody knew which room to go to because they kept moving things.
it was, and they even moved the book room. That was like, it was really crazy. Yeah.
Well,
That
just
was
for
not
the
a
record,
well-run VoucherCon.
What?
That was not a well-run VoucherCon. I've been to a number of them.
And they're better than that usually?
Some of them, oh yeah.
well, just for the record, I'm not personally aware of exactly how this worked out, but the original organization that had said they would do all of the grunt work and get all the signage up and do all the organizing for the Dallas one backed out. And there were some last minute people that came in, and some from this chapter who worked their asses off to get it to what it was. And so kudos to our folks who were so great at, I wasn't there. I was in Barcelona, but
Poor thing.
but there were some wonderful folks that from our group that actually made it possible. And kudos to them. But that was not a typical VoucherCon from what I understand. I'm going to NOLA with Dave.
I kind of regret not signing up for that one, but I just kind of, the beginning of the year, I decided I'm going to do conferences in 2022. So that's just, I just drew a line.
Have you
I
been
don't have to
to
decide.
Killer Nashville or MurderCon?
I've been to Killer Nashville a couple times. That's a nice little conference, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
One
good.
advantage is, and I don't know if she still is, but the ones I was at, Ann Perry's always there, which I think is kind of a thrill to be in with Ann Perry.
Yep. Well,
Also-
and in
also Clay
fact,
is-
that was another, where the Silver Falchion was awarded to
Yes.
the Meals on Wheels. No, now you got me saying it, Kay.
Murder on Wheels.
Murder on Wheels. There we go. All right.
Yes,
Okay,
and-
I'd like you to talk a little bit about guppies. I am, Anna had a whole lot to do with getting me over to that group after years. And it is just such a wonderful amount of support and knowledge and networking. Could you talk about that a little bit, Kay?
I can. I am a huge fan of the Guppies. In fact, I'm a past president.
Mhm.
Back when it was about 500 or 600 members, I guess, and it grows and grows and grows and grows. That organization started, if you don't know anything, does anybody not know anything about Guppies?
Well, let's just give a real
don't
quick
know a lot.
background.
Well, it started
National-
out,
National Sisters in Crime has many, 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 many chapters. Obviously,
Yes.
Heart of Texas is one.
right,
Guppies is an online one that anybody who is a member of Sisters in Crime National can be a member of Guppies, just like you can be a member of Hot Sink. So you can be in many more than one chapter. Having said that, Kay, take it away.
well, it started with, I think, 8 writers. Leslie Budowitz was one of them. Who were some of the other? Was Sarah, the good writer from Chicago?
Horetsky? No.
Yeah, I think she was another one.
Okay.
No, maybe she's a founder of Sisters in Crime. Anyway, there were 8 people who, this was back in the days before the internet. They would snail mail things to each other and critique each other. And they had an idea, and they were not in the same area. They were across country from each other. And eventually the internet came along, and they got on the internet and started gathering momentum, and they decided they wanted to be a chapter of the Sisters in Crime, and they wanted to be the chapter that helped unpublished people get published. And they called themselves the Great Unpublished. And that's where Guppy came from. Sisters in Crime at first said, oh no, you can't do that. That's not going to work. Unpublished people can't help people get help each other get published. Lo and behold, it did work, and all of the original members are multi-published now, and it took off. And it's the group still has the focus on helping people get published. There's a subgroup for agents. There's a subgroup for writing synopsis. There's a subgroup for marketing. There's a subgroup for different genres. There's a cozy subgroup. It's just got a whole bunch of subgroups for every interest you could possibly have. And if you have an interest that there's not a subgroup for, you're perfectly encouraged to start a subgroup for it. And there are people from all over the world. There's people from Australia and Finland and Italy and all over. I think it's the only international chapter.
All of its work seems to be online. It's like a list serve.
All online. Yes.
So there is, I mean, maybe a group will have a speaker. Not really. It's up to the chapter.
No.
So
what the only physical thing they have is there's a guppy breakfast at Malice usually.
and they are trying to get a guppy group together at BoucherCon on the Wednesday.
Yeah, we try to meet each other at different conferences. And if you wear your guppy pin, it's like a Masonic thing. You can recognize each other, you know.
The deal is it's all done via email. It's a listserv. And the way I get it is I get the day summary all at one time. So I'm not getting bombarded with a bunch of emails. And the interface and the networking is just off the charts. Anna, can you tell us what do you?
That wasn't what I wanted to say. I read mine online. I read it on the web. So it's not strictly a listserv. You can choose different ways to interact with it. Yeah, I'm at my desktop all day long, so I figure that's my convenient way to look at it. And I don't need that much stuff in my inbox. Oh my God, that would drive me crazy.
I get the digest too. I don't get individual emails.
Yeah, with your groups and whatnot. Yeah. So anyway, there's more than one way to get into it. Yeah.
And I believe it's all a whopping $10 to join the chapter.
No, I think it's more than that by now. It might be 35.
No,
Can't remember. Not that much.
Not.
It's 25 then. We went up from 10. It's definitely not 10. But we got such a massive number of.
No, it's 10. Well, unless is it just a one-time in?
No, it's yearly.
Then it's 10. Because that's all I've paid for it is 10.
Oh, okay.
The great thing about the Guppies is there's so many people. There's well over 1,000 people. I don't even know what the number is now.
Yeah, 1,000.
But if you have a question about anything, there's somebody there that knows the answer.
Yeah.
You
there's
ask
lots
a
of
question.
lawyers. There's like forensic psychologists. There's all this expertise in there. There's one of every kind of thing.
If you want to know about running a hotel, driving a cab.
Yeah. Pharmacists. I mean, there's everything.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And you will get answers, and the subgroups are really good.
Yep.
There's like a critique swap group that's managed by one of the steering committee members. And
you know
and
what?
Actually, a short story group.
Yeah, there's a short story group. Yeah. And there's an anthology every 2 years, which we'll just find another publisher next summer. It's not like that's going away. That's a valuable service for the.
Okay, I'm going to hop in here now. Tom, remember how you asked me about having readers for the shorter stuff? Guppies might be just exactly where you might want to go.
I see. How do I contact them?
Oh, honey, I'll get that to you. I'll make that happen to you. That would be exciting. What I learn at Guppies, I bring to Sisters in Crime. They are not exclusive of each other. It's amazing how much can be brought to our chapter and what our chapter can bring to them. So it's a very nice relationship, just for the record. I know I'm pitching Guppies and I'm the Heart of Texas president, but bottom line is we're all here to learn something and to share something and to hear what somebody else's experience is. And so
see, that's the great thing about mystery writers.
Yep.
We're all interested in helping each other. It's not really a competition.
Yes.
People can buy 2 books or 3 books. They can buy all the books.
Yeah, I've got some for sale if anybody's interested. No, just okay, so kind of got down a different road there, which is I think really cool because Kay, you have got such a vast amount of experience. We can go down, we can head to Alaska or go down to the Keys with you, honey.
Well, it's like Anna says, I think I have attention deficit or something. I'm scattered. I just kind of go here and there.
I never said anything even a little bit like that. You're
Well,
an extremely imaginative
I said
person.
it.
Okay.
So do we have any questions, any other roads we need to go down for with our dear Kay here, who has been so generous? And thank you so much for
I'm
being
out of
here.
material. So,
You're out of material?
well, I
Okay,
mean,
Tom, Tom.
for my talk.
Oh, okay. Tom, what's your question?
Have you ever done audiobooks?
Well, my publishers do them. Actually, I did the audiobooks. I didn't do them. I did them through Audible for the Imogene Duckworthy series, and it was really a good experience through Audible. I had a segment that was a certain length, and I put it out there, and people auditioned. They read it, and I listened to them read it, and I chose which one I wanted to do my books. And Victoria, it's been so long since I worked. Victoria Newton, I think was her name. She did an excellent job on my books, I thought, and I was able to. You can either pay them up front, which is expensive, or you could split the royalties, and I split the royalties, and that worked out satisfactorily for both of us. My publishers have done audiobooks for the ones that have publishers, and frankly, I haven't listened to them, but I know people who do buy them and listen to them.
When you
I
say
did.
you split the-
I had one little experience doing an audiobook. When my husband was in seminary, he had a classmate, Carol, who is legally blind. In fact, he drove her to school and back because obviously she can't drive. And she wanted to read a book for a class. And it's a book that I had read. It was a book by Gary Gilmore's brother. Gary Gilmore was a serial killer in Utah.
Oh, yeah.
And he was executed by firing squad because he was a Mormon, and Mormons want to be executed by firing squad so their blood goes on the ground. It's something about the religion. But his brother wrote a book about their childhood and their life. And I think it was called Shot in the Heart because of the way he died. His name was Gilmore too, not Gary Gilmore, but anyway, she wanted to read that book for some class in seminary, and I read that for her on tape. And that is a hard thing to do. For one thing, you run out of spit and you get hoarse, and you have to put all the punctuation in, and you have to tell them when you're turning a page, and you have to tell them when it's italics or something, and you can't just like read it. That turned out to be a huge project, and I was glad when it was done, and I will never do it again.
Wow.
I listen to audiobooks all the time in the car. I'm in the car a lot.
Mhm.
And
I do listen to them there when I drive.
amazed at the readers who can put a half dozen different characters in their voice so that you know who's speaking. Just
Yeah.
the voice. And I could never do that personally, but it is amazing to me, those people.
Well,
there are
and you
some good
know,
readers.
I get very picky about what the reader sounds like. For example, I've read the last 5, I guess, of the Daniel Silva books. Okay. And I thought, oh, wow. Oh, he's the one that does the artist who, Elon, he's the head of the Jewish like CIA, but he's under a guise of being this incredible artist and art restorer. And so I thought, I'm not like on the 28th book or whatever. And I thought, I think I want to hear this, listen to this story from the beginning. So I downloaded Audible Book 1. And the narrator was so dry. compared to the guy who did it, 20 books later. I ended up not reading it.
Oh,
Yeah, they changed readers. So,
the best audiobooks I've ever read or heard are Amy Tan. And she does her books. She does her Chinese grandmother in a perfect accent. Amy Tan she reads her own books, which I really admire, and it's incredible.
Walter Mosley has the most awesome narrator of them all. At
Who
least
does?
his early,
Who?
Walter Mosley.
Oh.
Mosley.
Oh, okay.
At least the early ones that I've heard of the Easy Rollins books, that guy can do 12 completely different people, completely different voices. He's amazing book narrator, right? It's a voice actor, I guess is what they call themselves. And
Yeah.
some of them are just spectacular. Elizabeth Peters had a reader like that, a woman who could do 12 voices, all completely different, all really wonderful. I love those kind of audiobooks with that kind of performance going
Yeah.
on.
I see some folks who have not unmuted themselves. Helen, did you have another question, dear? Helen Fanick?
Well, I did have a question about the guppies, back to the guppies, but it seems like you're not all amateurs that belong to the guppies.
That's
Correct.
true. It started out as the Great Unpublished, and after some people get published, they leave and they go on to other things. But a lot of people just stay because of the expertise, and actually to try to help other people out too. I'm very proud of a program that I started. Ellen Doutz and I started it together. It's called Fantasy Agent, and it's going on right now. We decided that we wanted to have the published guppies mentor the unpublished guppies in a more formal way. So the unpublished guppies, you have to be unpublished and you submit the first 30 or 50 pages or something that you're working on, and it's all anonymous. The agent and the author are anonymous because we kind of ran into a problem the first year where people got kind of bent out of joint a little bit. So the writer submits a synopsis and the first 3 chapters or the first 30 pages, whatever it is, and the fantasy agent reads it and gives a critique that's on a form. There's certain things you look for: the character, the setting, the beginning, if the beginning is good, and at the end you say, would you keep reading this or not? You're the agent. You either turn them down or accept them as an agent. And that's still going on a few years later, and it's a really good project, I think.
Any other questions? Helen, do you have a follow-up?
No, I think that's it. I guess I should mute myself then, huh? Is that the system?
It kind of is a system. We're playing it kind of loose this week because Kay was up for that, and that's so cool of you, Kay. So we're good. I will say we are kind of drawing to the end of our time. Do we have any questions that haven't been asked or topics that haven't been covered that you all are interested in?
Do something with your Neanderthal.
I'm
That
sorry.
was a cute story. The Neanderthal. That
Yeah,
was a cute story.
David was an early, excuse me, an early reader there. I started writing that in the Austin group, and I went through a lot to get the voice of that right. I tried it a lot of different ways, and I think I finally got it. David
Good.
was
It was a cute story.
Well, there's 2, I'm writing the 3rd.
Okay, so Kay, I'm assuming we can find all of your books, all your short stories and stuff on your website, right?
kgeorge.com. Yep, I have buy links all over the place.
Okay, so kgeorge.com. Kgeorge, one word.
Yes, with an E, Kaye, George.
Kaye, George.com. Okay. All right. Well, I tell you what, I'm thinking I'm going to do just a few business things here because we're getting towards the end. If you're still thinking about questions, so I'll come back to you one more time, after I get my announcements. And the first one is a sad one. I'm sorry to say that our dear friend Sue Cleveland She and Dixie ride as Meredith Lee, Digging Up the Dead. She and Dixie did a phenomenal program on marketing a couple of years back for our group. They have not written the second one because Sue's husband became very ill. And I am sorry to say that Sue's husband, Clevis, died Friday after a long illness. His memorial service will be June 30th at 3 o'clock at Cook Walden Forest Oaks on West William Cannon Drive. Many of us met Clevis at one time or another, particularly at the book launch at Book People. He's a delightful man. And so just for the record, I wanted you all to have that information that just happened on Friday. And then a real quick reminder that next month, we have 2 events on. Our first Thursday of the month, members only, marketing happy hour is turning out to be great. We have a lot of folks coming with questions and a lot of ideas about what others are doing to make their marketing possibilities successful. It's kind of like today was, you know, just give and take, and lots of information shared. Because it's on Zoom, it's BYOB of whatever you choose. And it's at 4 o'clock, and we'll get the Zoom link out to you pretty quick. Second, and this is, of course, our regular meeting, that is going to be on Sunday, July the 11th at 2 o'clock. We have Angie Maddox she owns and is the main person at She Spies Private Eyes here in Austin. So she's got 18 years of experience in the private investigative biz. And so we're looking forward to hearing all of the antics that she's probably going to relate to us. So that's what we've got going on for Sisters in Crime in July. We have gotten word, Noreen, we have gotten word that the Texas Book Festival is going to take place over the Halloween weekend, which is kind of odd that they're doing it over Halloween, but whatever. 6th Street will be a real blast when they do their literary walk. But anyway, we may have a table there. We're still waiting to hear from them that they are going to. Do you have further information, Noreen? Oh, okay, because you look kind of like, we might have a table there. We're waiting for them to give us the application so we know that we can start doing all of that. That gets our books out on the table. We get to see each other, and it'll be awesome. And it looks like in September, the library, Maureen, tell me I'm saying the right words. The library is thinking about allowing us to go back to in-person meetings. And
we're waiting to see. We know that we're going to be online through the summer, and then after that, we're going to wait and see what's what. So we'll see.
Not that I'm pushing, but I really want to see everybody in
Yeah,
person.
Zoom is
Okay.
getting old.
What, dear? What
Zoom
day?
is getting old.
Yeah, Zoom's getting old, and so am I, older. And unfortunately, when you see me, COVID-19 has struck, but I'm not talking about the disease. I'm talking about the pounds. So we just have to all be nice to each other when we see each other and not mention it. Okay, so that's what we've got up. The Hot Sink Marketing members only marketing hour, happy hour on Thursday the 1st. It's the first Thursday, 4 o'clock. And then our regular general meeting on Sunday, the 11th at 2 o'clock, same bat channel, same bat time. So any other last minute questions for Kay here? Well, we are blessed to have had you, Kay. My gosh, you are incredible. And you came to us kind of at the last moment, and we're so grateful, and you just rock it, girl. Remember, her email is George.com, where you can find her books and all of her stuff, and probably a little bit more bio on her as well. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank
Take
you for
care.
having me. I'm
Oh.
leaving with my head 3 sizes bigger because of all your compliments.
Yeah, well, it should be. So there you go.
Thank you. It's
Thank
great
you.
to see
Take care,
everybody.
Kay. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.